everybody, it's Emily at Art Schooling, and we're gonna talk about the books I read this year with my 16-year-old, and I'm gonna give you her ranking of our read-alouds. We read a total of 6 books for read-alouds this year. I feel like the older the kids get, the less we actually get through. I always used to read like 15, 16, sometimes even 20 books in a year with my kids, and when they get to be teenagers, that number shrinks dramatically because like bigger books take longer to get through, especially if I'm reading it aloud. Like some of these we did as audio, but for the most part I read all of these out loud, so they take a bit longer that way. Anyway, let's start with, I'm going to tell you everything we read in order. So to start the year, we did Morbid Curiosities. I'm going to do a video later about like how that went, but for now we're just going to talk about our read-alouds. So we started the year off with our cannibalism unit. That's hard to find a piece of literature to read, but I decided we would do Unwind by Neal Shusterman because it still fits within the theme of cannibalism, because the story is about this idea of, in this near future world, we've fought a civil war in America over reproductive rights called the Heartland Wars, and the compromise we came to was that abortion would be fully illegal, but after the age of 12 you can choose to have your child unwound. And the idea here is that they're basically donated to science, and their bodies are harvested for parts. And because of this new method they have for doing this, they're technically not dead. They're never killed. They are merely unwound. And so you have these teens on the run, and they're all trying to escape their fate of being unwound. And it's a really interesting story, very thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed reading this with her. I've read this book so many times. Like, I read it myself, I've read it to my twins, I read it to Regina, I read it again to Lesson Planet, like I've read it a lot. Then we did our yearly Shakespeare. This year we did Hamlet, and we opted to do one of these no fear graphic novel versions of the play, and then we watched a movie. I thought Hamlet would be a good one to do with our Morbid Curiosities because we read this during our death unit, and I mean, it is about, we could have also done it for murder, but I decided to do it for death because the whole story is like all about the idea of death and like Hamlet talking to his dead father, trying to figure out what he should do about it, and all of that. Very philosophical, and it just made sense there. And then we read a Terry Pratchett. I wanted to do a death book. I didn't want to read Mort again because I literally just read it like a few months before, and I was like really not feeling it again. So even though Mort is one of my favorites, so I thought we should move on. And I'd never read Reaper Man. It's the next book in the death sequence, and so we read this together. Honestly, as much as I love Terry Pratchett's books, this was maybe one of my, I don't want to say my least favorite, but it's on the lower end of the scale for me. It was fine. I liked the idea of Death trying to be just an average guy and getting a job as a farmhand. I liked that part of the story more than the rest of it. The concept here is because Death has taken on a new job, he's not doing his job anymore, and so people aren't passing on. They're just like ghosts, and they're trapped in this like in between, and they're trying to figure out what to do about it. So like that's the concept here. So it was a fun read. It was interesting, but it wasn't one of my favorites. Then when we got to the murder unit, we kind of got stuck here. We ended up doing way too long in the murder unit, and it stalled us out for a long time, but we read 2 of the Arc of the Scythe books. We did not complete it because Regina didn't want to. and I didn't want to fight it. So we read Scythe and we read Thunderhead. I love this series. I really am bummed that she wouldn't let me finish. I wanted to read the whole thing, but you know, this is my favorite trilogy, and I love the concepts in the story, the idea of what is it like to be immortal, and what happens to people who live in a perfect world. Like, if you have no problems, if nothing bad ever happens to you, if you have nothing to fear, like, what becomes of humanity? But also, what happens when you give a certain group of people the power to wield death? Like, the idea of a scythe is this morally, like, good person who takes their job very seriously, and they have, like, very strict rules about how you are meant to do this. But what if you allow people to become scythes who are maybe not so morally good, who maybe enjoy what they do a little too much? That's kind of the concept of these stories, and it's really interesting. And then we finished off the year. I had one more book planned, but I hit burnout. There was no way I was going to get through any more material this year. She was very over it. It's the middle of June, and I was like, you know what? I think we can stop. We can stop here. We'd finished everything else. This was all that we had left. So we ended our year on The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This had nothing to do with Morbid Curiosities. We read this because I thought it would be fun to read something a little bit lighter than a lot of what we did this year was very heavy. And I was like, you know what? I needed to reread this anyway, because I'm reading the sequel for book club this month, and I wanted to refresh my memory. And I was like, what if we read it together? So I read it with Regina. And this is a very fun, cozy story about a world in which magical children and magical people exist, and they have all these different powers and different things. And we're following a character who's a caseworker, and his job is to go and check out the different orphanages where these magical children live and just make sure things are on the up and up and following the rules and all of that stuff. And he is assigned to go stay on this island and visit this one particular orphanage where things are maybe a little less conventional. And they just want to see what's happening there. They have some more extreme magical children, like the Antichrist, like a garden gnome, a sprite, were Pomeranian, a strange little creature. Like there's some interesting characters in this book, and it's very heartwarming, very sweet, like maybe a little bit sappy at moments. I loved it. It makes me feel happy, and I needed a happy read, and so we read this together. Okay, so that's the order in which we read the things. Now I'm going to give you Regina's ranking. As always, she likes to hurt me. But anyway, I'm going to start by saying she's hit like a difficult point in her teen years where she doesn't like anything if other people like it. And I think that's going to be a part of this. As always, her favorite book was Shakespeare, which I was not surprised by, because the last, I think, 2 years, her favorite thing we did was the Shakespeare. So she's a big fan. I'm going to try to do a comedy with her next year, because we've done tragedies so far and she's enjoyed those. Like, she loved Romeo and Juliet, she loved Macbeth, she loved Hamlet. So I'm like, what if we try Taming of the Shrew next? Because I want to rewatch 10 Things I Hate About You. So we're going to do Taming of the Shrew next year. Her next favorite was Unwind, which I was not surprised by. We had some really great discussions while we read this, and she still talks about this book. So I know it's stuck in her mind. And like, I think this is just a book that will stick in your mind. Like, you will not be able to stop thinking about it once you've read it. Even if you didn't love it, you'll still be thinking about it. Then, her next favorite was Thunderhead, And mild spoilers, it's because people die. Lots of people die in this book, and that's what made it good for her. She hated Dry. We read Dry last year by Neil Shusterman, and she was furious that no one died. And she was like, what do you mean they all survive? So I was like, just wait. We're going to get to something in which he does, in fact, kill people. So she loved Thunderhead for the death and carnage. Then House in the Cerulean Sea was just okay for her. I don't know. She didn't seem to have any feelings about it whatsoever. I kept trying to, like, gauge her interest, and she was just like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So then Scythe, she didn't like at all. I had to convince her to move on to Thunderhead with promises that I thought she would like the next book better. And I mean, she did. But her biggest complaint in this is Rowan, I think. She hated Rowan. I don't know why. She just hated him as a character, so I don't know. And then her least favorite of the year was Reaper Man, merely because she said she could not remember anything about it. So I'm like, okay, fair. And there you have it. Regina's ranking of our read-alouds for her 10th grade year. I can't say any of this was surprising to me, honestly. I would have thought Reaper Man might have been higher up, honestly, because she did seem to be enjoying it at the time we read it. But that has happened to me too, where I read a book, really liked it, and then like 6 months later, zero memory of the plot. Like, could not remember a single thing about that book. So I get that. It's happened to me. I'm not going to hold it against her. I still will hold her hate for Thunderhead and Scythe against her, though. Like, I'm mad about that. How dare you not love the thing I love? Anyway, let me know down in the comments, what was your favorite, if you've done read-alouds this year with your kids, what was your favorite read-aloud you did this year? I think, even though she hated it, my favorite read-aloud we did this year was The Ark of the Scythe. I'm always excited to revisit that world. So I was very excited to read that with her, even if she didn't love it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.